She had given 9 hours of her day, on her feet in constant motion, barely pausing to breathe, and for all that, she walked away with $1 in tips. $1. The rest went to someone who hadn't touched a plate, hadn't smiled at a customer, hadn't lifted a single coffee cup from counter to table. He stood all day near a glowing screen, a screen she wasn't even permitted to touch. Jackson Pryor, 42, stepped quietly into Sunrise Café. Faded jeans, a plain button-down shirt. Nothing about him hinted at ownership or authority. To everyone else, he looked like just another tired man picking up shifts in a weary town. No one recognized him. No one knew he was the one who had founded this place years ago, a dream carved into reality. Wood-paneled booths, soft lighting, and a promise that everyone who worked here mattered. Evelyn May approached, placing a steaming cup of coffee before him with gentle hands. Her voice was low, like the quiet at the end of a long day. Worked 9 hours, got $1, but it's fine. I am used to it. She turned away before he could answer, and as she walked back to the register, something shifted in Jackson's eyes, a flicker of something old. Anger, maybe, or guilt. The jazz from the record player floated through the air, soft and slow, trying to hold together a place unraveling thread by thread. Around him, the cafe hummed with a quiet nostalgia. Elderly couples sat tucked into cracked leather booths, fingers brushing over teacups, lost in stories only they could tell. Sunlight spilled through lace curtains, casting a golden haze across the chipped tiles and worn ceramic. It was warm, it was familiar, but something in the rhythm felt off. Behind the counter, movements were fast but unfeeling. Smiles came too quick, didn't touch the eyes. Evelyn wiped down the counter twice in the same spot, like her mind had drifted far from this place. A younger worker fumbled a tray and flinched before anyone even reacted. Jackson, still and watchful in the corner, caught every detail. His eyes weren't on the coffee. They were on the stories hiding beneath the surface. He saw Trent, tall, confident, too polished. He stood by the register like a sentinel, untouched by the churn of the dining floor. Every card swipe passed through his hands. Every digital tip landed under his name. He didn't serve, didn't clear, didn't refill. He only stood there. Yet he absorbed the fruits of everyone else's labor. Evelyn passed by again. Her steps weren't slow from laziness or age. They were the steps of someone worn thin from being overlooked, from giving everything and being seen as nothing. Jackson kept watching. Evelyn moved with quiet grace. She remembered faces, asked about surgeries and grandkids, refilled drinks before they emptied. Her care wasn't performative. It was embedded, instinctive, practiced over years. She made people feel seen, remembered, human. And yet, she never touched the register. Trent guarded it, always nearby. She didn't even glance toward it. One customer, noticing, pointed to the tip line on the receipt and smiled. Evelyn thanked him with soft sincerity, then gently slid the paper aside. Trent picked it up without a word, typed something in, and tucked it into the drawer. The interaction was robotic, calculated, too practiced. Jackson's fingers tightened around the coffee mug, still full. He wasn't watching foam. He was watching power. Who had it? Who didn't? Trent's shirt was crisp. His posture was military straight. He never broke a sweat. The younger servers hovered near him, hopeful, maybe scared, but they never questioned him. The older ones, Evelyn, Clara, they stayed back. Respectful? No. Distant. Controlled. A man at table 7 left a generous tip. Evelyn, as usual, placed the slip on the counter's edge. Trent swept it away. Another silent transaction. Jackson noted everything. It wasn't random. It was a system. One person in charge of the flow, the rest just background noise. Evelyn, meanwhile, moved like water, smooth, sure, unseen. She poured water with care, added a slice of lemon just the way Mr. Garrison liked. He smiled, surprised she remembered. She always remembered. She didn't need a notepad, just her heart. That was her ledger. Still, when it came to payments, she faded out of the picture. She didn't handle receipts. She didn't touch tips. She cleared cups, refolded napkins, straightened chairs. Jackson scribbled in a pocket-sized notebook. She's the one doing the work, so why is someone else getting paid for it? The day wore down. Customers trickled out. Evelyn moved with quiet intention, cleaning, organizing, resetting the space for tomorrow. Then, in a moment where no one looked, she reached into her apron and pulled out a small leather-bound notebook. The corners were soft, the spine creased from years of use. Embossed faintly on the cover were 3 tiny letters. E. May 1978. She held it for a breath, just one, before sliding it gently into her bag. Jackson noticed everything. The careful way she touched it, the weight it seemed to carry. That notebook mattered. It carried something unspoken, and someone, somewhere, had once made her believe no one else would ever care what she wrote inside. Back in the narrow hallway behind the kitchen, where the walls held forgotten birthdays and faded notes, Evelyn spoke in hushed tones to Clara, who dried her hands in silence. "I write it down," Evelyn said. "Not because I think it'll change anything, just so I know I'm not crazy. Even if everyone else pretends not to see." Clara nodded without meeting her eyes, folded the towel slowly, like folding away something too heavy to say. "They see it," Evelyn whispered, voice quiet but resolute. "They just don't want to be the first to speak." Neither she nor Clara noticed Jackson standing motionless behind the supply shelf. He didn't clear his throat. He didn't shift his weight. He just stood in the quiet, absorbing it all. And right then, the weight of everything hit him. Not just missing numbers, but lives being quietly diminished. Voices stolen without anyone shouting. The betrayal wasn't loud. It was built in silence. The scent of bacon and freshly brewed coffee tugged at an older memory. One older than Sunrise Café. It drifted back to a smaller place with checkered floors and a kitchen door that swung without ever closing fully. There, Evelyn stood tall behind a diner counter, her apron crisp, her hair pinned with care. And beside her, a man with warm eyes and a crooked smile balanced breakfast plates in one hand while pouring juice with the other. At the end of each shift, they dropped their tips into a single glass jar. No talk, no scorekeeping. She'd add hers, he'd nod. "Fair is fair," he'd say. "Doesn't matter who carried more. We carried it together." She'd laugh, then, truly laugh, and lean against him, like the world outside could wait. It wasn't about the money. It was about what they believed in. Fairness, respect, and dignity, built on shared effort. The memory faded, but the warmth stayed, tucked in her chest, like a photograph folded into a wallet. Jackson didn't know that man. He didn't know the history. But when Evelyn wiped the same spot on the counter twice, her motions slow, tender, he could feel it, like a ghost standing beside her. This wasn't about $1. It was about the erosion of a code she once lived by. Later, the diner emptied. The last hum of the fridge replaced laughter. Silverware clinked into drawers. Evelyn counted bills at the register. Her husband leaned beside her, drying his hands, watching her in the mirror of the closing day. "Fairness doesn't live in systems," he'd once told her. "It lives in how we treat people." She had paused then, glancing at the shared tip jar between them. He didn't need to elaborate. "You can build rules all day," he added, "but if you can't look someone in the eye when you split what you earned, you already cheated." She didn't nod with her head. She nodded with her entire face, with belief. That lesson never left her. The jar had disappeared long ago. The world moved to screens, but that truth remained, written between the lines of her leather notebook, tucked where no one else looked. Later, she picked up a freshly printed receipt. The heat still clung to the paper. A handwritten $5.00 thank you from a loyal customer who knew her name, who had sat at her tables for years. She folded the receipt with care and placed it beside the register. Trent didn't acknowledge her. He typed. The drawer clicked open. The screen flashed. Tip received, 0. She didn't flinch. Just reached into her apron and opened the notebook with steady hands. She flipped to a half-filled page and wrote, date, time, table, amount given, amount shown. Then closed it like it was something holy. Jackson watched from across the room, and he finally understood. She wasn't guessing. She was documenting, quietly, methodically, proving a truth the system refused to see, and she'd been doing it alone. Later that evening, Jackson sat in his parked car across the street. The windshield began to fog in the soft descent of twilight. He unlocked his phone, tapped into the private admin feed, access he never revoked. Hours of surveillance spilled across the screen, compressed time flashing in front of him like evidence begging to be acknowledged. Every tip, every swipe, every interaction, all flowing through one person, Trent. Jackson rewound, slowed it down, checked again. Evelyn never touched the register. Neither did Clara. None of the older staff did. Only 3 users had full permissions. Evelyn wasn't one of them. He shut off the screen and stared across at the diner, now empty and glowing in the soft amber of street lamps. The numbers told a story. But this story was being written in erasure, in omissions, so silent they screamed. The next morning, Jackson arrived before opening, a cardboard box under one arm filled with sleeves and stir sticks. To anyone watching, he was just another part-time worker restocking sugar packets. Trent hadn't shown up yet. Ramona was in the back. Jackson crouched behind the counter. To the casual eye, he was checking supplies, but from his jacket pocket he slid out a tracker no larger than a USB stick. Matte, smooth, silent. He pressed it under the drawer ledge, heard the faintest click, then stood, wiped his hands, grabbed a stack of napkins. No alarms, no suspicion. The device would now log every access, every transaction, every digital fingerprint left behind. He wasn't relying on memory. He wanted data, evidence, truth that couldn't be erased. Later, Jackson approached Clara near the sink. She bent slightly, her back curved with age, wiping down mugs. "Noticed anything off lately?" he asked gently, just a fellow coworker making small talk. She paused. Just a second, but that second held weight. Her eyes flicked toward the register, then back to the floor. "I notice everything," she said, "but noticing ain't the same as speaking." She straightened slightly. "I'm 70. My granddaughter waits for me after school. My prescriptions cost more than what I bring home. If I speak up, I'm gone. I've seen it happen, cheap, quick replacements. People like me don't get second chances." She returned to her task. Her hands moved slower, but her words rang louder than anything Jackson had heard that day. In the break room, surrounded by the musty scent of soup and coffee grounds, Jackson scanned the space while pretending to dig for stir sticks. Above the microwave, a paper was freshly taped to the wall. Block letters in sharp marker. "Assistants are not permitted to operate POS terminal. Signed, Ramona. The paper looked new, no wrinkles, no splatter, like it had just been posted. Below it, another typed note. All digital tips must be processed by supervisor. No name, no need. The message was clear. He stepped back. No reaction on his face, but inside, the truth crystallized. This wasn't mismanagement. It was delusion. The political, the financial, the social. The day was designed. At a nearby booth, Evelyn refilled the sugar jar. She didn't even glance at him. "I don't expect to get rich doing this," she said quietly, her hands arranging the sugar packets into perfect rows. "I don't need bonuses. I don't even need thanks." Her voice softened. "I just want to see my name on the list, the one that says who earned what." Jackson didn't say a word. He didn't have to. Finally, Evelyn looked him in the eye. Her gaze was steady, not searching for comfort, just tired of being invisible. "Most days," she said quietly, "I don't even check anymore. It's worse when I do." She turned and walked away, her apron creased, her back straight with dignity she refused to lay down. Jackson didn't follow. He stood where she left him, cloth still in hand, heart growing heavier by the minute. This was never just about money. It was about something more fundamental. Being seen, being counted, not just used. Outside during his break, Jackson leaned against the cool brick wall. The sunlight had softened into late afternoon gold. He sipped from a paper cup and scrolled through the private dashboard on his phone. Ranch 42. The numbers looked healthy on paper. Sales strong. Ticket averages up. Glowing reviews from customers. By every surface metric, it was one of the top-performing cafes in the district. But one column never balanced. Staff turnover high. Alarmingly high. Especially for employees over 50. He scrolled through old rosters, recognized faces from past footage. People who smiled, who cared, who were gone in a matter of weeks. The pattern wasn't random. It wasn't about speed or skill. It was about attrition, systematic, efficient. High performance, high burnout. It wasn't the workload pushing them out. It was something colder. Designed. He locked his phone and leaned his head back, eyes closed. If the numbers looked this clean, yet the people looked this worn down, someone was hiding the real cost, and Jackson was beginning to understand who'd been footing the bill all along. Later he found Ramona near the stockroom, her clipboard tapping against her palm like a metronome ticking down to burnout. He approached casually, wiping his hands on his apron. "Busy morning?" She gave a quick smile. "Always is. You get used to it." He nodded. "I noticed some folks don't use the register. Different roles?" Ramona gave a soft, clipped laugh. Not cruel, just efficient. "Oh, that's just me streamlining things," she said. Her voice dropped just enough to hint at honesty without inviting discussion. "Older staff forget buttons, mess things up. So I simplified, keeps everything running smooth." Jackson didn't respond. He just listened. She shrugged, her smile unchanged. Nothing personal, just easier this way. He watched her walk off, clipboard swinging like a judge's gavel in a court that never saw its defendants. He'd heard a lot of lies in his life. The ones that hurt most always came wrapped in the soft language of policy. That afternoon, a regular came in. White hair, pressed slacks, the kind who tipped from memory, not obligation. He placed a $20 bill on the counter with his receipt. "Keep the change," he told Evelyn. She smiled, thanked him with grace, but before she could process it, Trent swooped in from behind the register. "I'll handle it," he said quickly, fingers flying across the screen. Jackson watched, pretending to organize drink lids. He saw the screen flash, tip destination, branch operations fund. Confirmed, click, done. No pause, no explanation, just smooth theft dressed as policy. Evelyn glanced up. Too late. The moment had passed. Jackson memorized the words. Branch Operations Fund. Neat. Untraceable. Invisible to anyone not looking for it. But he was. And now the fraud had a name. That night, Jackson sat in a cheap motel room, soft yellow light casting long shadows over the small desk. His laptop glowed with data pulled from the tracker he installed. Line after line, transaction after transaction. At first glance, everything appeared routine. Tips logged, orders closed, receipts printed, but the patterns screamed beneath the surface. Same register, same login, same outcome. Regardless of who took the order, Evelyn, Clara, Louise, the tip recipient ID always traced back to Trent. Always. The system didn't flag it, the reports didn't question it. But to someone who understood systems, it was unmistakable. It wasn't favoritism. It was a funnel, and Trent was standing squarely in the center, controlling the flow. The sun was low in the sky the next day. The lunch rush had thinned. Coffee pots kept warm for stragglers. The world slowed into quiet. Evelyn slid into the booth across from Jackson. She didn't speak at first, just placed the notebook on the table. Leather worn, edges frayed, spine bent by time. May 1978. The initials were barely visible now, like the name of someone the world tried to forget. Her fingers rested gently on the cover. "No one listens when you're old," she said, voice low. "They smile, nod, then they forget you even spoke." She pushed the notebook toward him. "So I stopped talking." Jackson opened the cover slowly, reverently. Inside, lines of data in careful cursive. Dates, tip amounts, names, red circles around discrepancies, side notes in the margins. She watched him, her eyes never leaving the notebook. "This isn't revenge," she said. "It's memory. Because they won't remember for us." He didn't speak, just closed the notebook carefully and tucked it away, treating it like evidence and like something sacred. Later that night, Jackson sat alone in the back booth of the now empty diner, the notebook open under dim lights. He turned the pages one by one. Each line a quiet testimony, a small act of resistance. Dates, tables, tips reportedly left, tips actually received. Often the latter was 0. Red ink circled every mismatch, notes read like whispers. Mr. Green said $10.00. Posh showed $0.00. Guest handed me cash, never recorded. Repeat error, Trent processed. He added the figures. $30.00 here, $12.00 there. A slow bleed. On the final page, Evelyn had written quietly in the margin, "Total unaccounted $700.00, March to April, branch 42. Jackson closed the notebook slowly, his hands resting on the worn cover. These weren't just lost tips. They were lost hours, lost dignity, lost belief in fairness. But now they were written down, and that changed everything. And then came the memory Evelyn couldn't ever put in ink. He felt it, sharp and quiet, as she folded napkins. The cold hume of a hospital hallway, paper-thin walls, buzzing fluorescent light, an envelope with too many words. Final statement, hospice services. She opened her coin pouch. Worn bills, carefully folded, a few crumpled ones. Tip money from double shifts. All she had. $17.38. She counted twice. Is still not enough. A nurse passed by and offered a kind smile. Evelyn tried to return it, but her fingers clenched tighter around the envelope. Later, she sat by her husband's bedside, pretended everything was okay. He squeezed her hand, faint, firm. "You always took care of things," he whispered. And she always had. But that day, care didn't stretch far enough. Not when truth was buried, not when fairness had been replaced by silence. Trent leaned against the counter, sipping from a paper cup like he'd earned it. His posture was too relaxed for someone who hadn't cleared a single table all day. He wore entitlement like cologne. Evelyn walked past, steady as ever, a tray balanced in her hand, movements practiced and smooth. Behind her, a young server dropped a fork. It clattered against the tile. Without hesitation, Evelyn bent down, helping gather the scattered silverware. Calm, controlled. Trent's voice cut through the moment like a blade. "Tips aren't a right," he said, loud enough for the break room to hear. "They're a reward. Nobody owes you one. And last I checked, sharing isn't mandatory." He laughed at his own joke, tapping the register screen like it was a gavel in his personal courtroom. A ding sounded, another transaction closed, another dollar diverted. In the corner, Clara flinched, but she didn't speak. Evelyn didn't stop, didn't look back, but her grip on the tray tightened, knuckles paling. Every step she took forward felt like walking through static. From a booth nearby, Jackson watched it all, his eyes narrow, his heart beating just a little harder. That word, reward, kept echoing in his head. Reward for who? For what? For standing idle while others broke their backs. He wouldn't forget it. In the break room later, Jackson sat alone, tying his apron slowly, deliberately. His phone rested beside his coffee cup, screen dark but microphone live. He didn't need crystal clarity, he just needed honesty. From down the hall, voices floated in, careless, like always. Trent's laugh, Ramona's voice. If they really cared, they'd quit already. A chuckle, a door creaked shut. Jackson marked it in his notebook, date, time, location. Later in the kitchen, he slid the phone behind the napkin dispenser, hidden, watching. Clara walked in, eyes nervous. Trent's voice again. "The old ones. They don't even know how the system works." Jackson didn't argue. Not yet. He collected every word, let them stack like bricks. Because when the walls fell, he wanted their own voices to be the weight that crushed them. By the back counter, Jackson wiped trays slowly. Clara passed by. Her eyes never met his, but as she brushed past, she pressed something into his palm. A torn scrap of receipt paper. No word spoken. Later, alone in the hallway, he unfolded it. Shaky handwriting. Just a single line. Evelyn got threatened with termination last week for asking about the tips. No signature, none needed. He knew the hand, and he knew what it cost to write it. He looked out to the dining floor. Evelyn at table 6, moving with calm grace, smiling gently, as if she didn't know that honesty had become dangerous. He folded the note and slid it into his pocket, his jaw clenched. This wasn't about policy anymore. It was fear. And when fear infects a workplace, there's only one path forward. Burn the rod out. Saturday morning, the cafe buzzed with life. Silverware clinked. Laughter danced off tile and the jukebox hummed faintly in the background. It looked perfect from the outside. Evelyn moved between tables like a song, fluid, familiar, kind. Her hands trembled faintly, but not enough to spill a single drop. She smiled. She remembered names. She served like someone who still believed hospitality mattered, and bright regardless. Evelyn moved between tables like a song, her voice harrowing, her hands like From the corner, Jackson watched. Every glance, every pause, every effort. At the register, Trent stood tall, flicking through screens with smug ease. He never looked at the servers, never thanked them. His smile was only for the customers, and even that was rehearsed. Then Ramona stepped out from the back, blazers sharp, steps composed. Her eyes swept the room like a queen surveying a court. She exchanged polite greetings, but never once did her gaze meet Evelyn's. And that was what made it all so sinister. Everything looked fine. That's how systems survive, by dressing oppression in professionalism. Then the front door opened. Jackson stepped inside. No apron, no hat, no disguise. He wore a sharp gray suit, polished shoes, and a stare that cut through the room like a knife. He didn't walk, he advanced. Calm, steady, purposeful. The hush fell. Conversation softened. Forks paused mid-bite. One customer leaned in, whispering, "Is that?" Recognition spread like a wave. It was him. Jackson Pryor, founder, CEO. Ramona froze mid-laugh, smile slipping like a mask cracking. Trent straightened, hands pulling away from the register. Evelyn glanced up from table 4, her breath caught, but she said nothing, just watched. Jackson didn't look at anyone directly. He walked to the counter and placed one hand firmly on its surface. He wasn't here for coffee. He was here for reckoning. "I'm Jackson Pryor," he said, his voice calm, unwavering, "founder of Sunrise Café." Gasps. One person dropped a spoon. Another gripped their coat. "I've spent the last week working here. Undercover. Watching. Listening. Serving." His gaze swept the room, not with judgment, but with certainty. "I came to understand why one of our top-performing locations has the highest staff turnover in the region." He paused. "Let it settle. What I've seen isn't a system failure." He looked directly at Evelyn. "It's a human one." Silence wrapped the room, not uncomfortable, reverent, like truth had finally arrived. Ramona said nothing, her face drained of color. One hand trembled against the counter. Trent took one step back, just one, but it was enough. His eyes darted. Door, register, anywhere but forward. Customers didn't move, didn't speak. Clara leaned toward Evelyn and whispered, barely audible, "It's him. It's really him." Evelyn didn't blink. She didn't smile. But her hand brushed her apron pocket, where her notebook rested. She stood straighter, shoulders back, because someone was finally standing where they should have been all along, right beside her. Jackson pulled a tablet from his coat and set it on the counter. With a few taps, the dashboard loaded. Numbers lit up. Clear, undeniable, truth at last, in black and white. And for the first time, everyone in the room saw exactly what Evelyn had been carrying on her own. For years. "This," Jackson begins, tapping the tablet screen with quiet finality, "is the internal audit of all tip transactions over the past 60 days. A graph materializes. Bar after bar rises against the white screen, data lined up like silent witnesses, each number a voice previously ignored. 76% of all recorded tips had been rerouted, not to servers, but into a fund labeled branch operations." He looks up, eyes meeting every corner of the room. "A fund," he says, voice even, "that exists in no official Sunrise Café policy." With another tap, a new tab slides into view. 2 names populate the screen beneath a heading that reads, "Full Tip Authorization Credentials." Only 2. Ramona Ellis, Trent Myers. A stunned gasp ripples through the cafe. From the back booth, a customer murmurs, "Unbelievable!" Ramona opens her mouth, but no sound follows. Trent's jaw tightens. His hands curl at his sides, fists clenching against his apron. Jackson doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't need to. The screen speaks now, louder than any accusation. He taps again. A live feed of internal system logs appears. Real-time data scrolls, transaction after transaction. Who served, who processed, who received. The names move down the screen in steady rhythm. Evelyn May, again and again. 82% of table coverage over the last week. Coffee poured, plates delivered, guests remembered. Not one digital tip recorded under her name. Instead, every transaction routes back to a single login. T. Myers. Tip after tip, regardless of the server, the credits were claimed under his profile. A quiet theft in plain sight. No system flags, no alerts, just a silent redirection. A siphon disguised as structure. A new kind of hush fills the room. Not shock. Recognition. Evelyn stares at the screen, her face still. She is known all along. But now the silence has been shattered, and truth is unignorable. She steps forward slowly, from behind the counter, hands trembling but unhidden. Her voice is soft, but it carries. "I'm not asking for compensation," she says, her eyes meeting Jackson's before scanning the room. "I'm not asking for back pay or apologies." She swallows. A pause. "I just want the system to see me." She lays her hand flat on the counter, the skin worn from years of work, nails short, polish long faded. For once, she continues, voice tightening, "I want my name to show up, not as an afterthought, not hidden beneath someone else's gain." Her eyes land on Trent's glowing name still etched across the screen. "I earned those tips, I served those tables, and I did it with care." No one speaks. She doesn't need them to, because the years she spent being silent were over, and this moment belonged to her. From the back, Clara steps forward. Her voice wavers, but she finds her center. "They made me sign something," she says. "A non-disclosure. They said it was about scheduling, nothing serious." She turns to Ramona. "But when I asked about my tips, I was told to stop asking or I'd be rotated out." The room shifts. Someone whispers, "That's not right." A man near the window nods. Another stands halfway. "I always tipped Evelyn every Sunday." Voices rise, not in outrage, but in solidarity. A new rhythm begins, one of awakening. The belly deserved better. "You can't treat people like this." Clara looks to Evelyn and offers a smile. What was once survival in silence has now become survival in unity. And they're no longer speaking alone. That afternoon, a quiet announcement moves through the cafe like a breeze before a storm. Ramona placed on immediate suspension, pending full investigation. No farewell speech, no hugs. Trent doesn't argue. He steps forward, pale, silent. Hands his credentials to Jackson, no excuse offered, none accepted. Jackson nods once, then signals the IT technician waiting nearby. Within minutes, the system refreshes, permissions recalibrated. A single line of code goes live across every terminal. Tip recipient equals server name. No more redirects. No more shadows. At table 6, Evelyn processes a card payment. Her name appears. Evelyn May, tip $3.75. Clear, honest, undeniable. It isn't grand, it isn't loud, but it's justice. And this time, it arrived in real time. Later that week, Jackson joins Evelyn in the booth near the window, the one she's cleaned first every morning for nearly a decade. He places a simple folder between them. The label reads, "Veteran Staff Honor Program." "We're building something new," he says, "company-wide. Not just recognition, but representation." He pauses. "I want you to help lead it." Helen blinks. Slowly, Me? Jackson nods. You've seen more than most, felt more than anyone should have. And you still showed up. He slides the folder closer. Official role. Advisor to HR. Your voice, front and center. She hesitates, and smiles, small, honest, whole. He doesn't say yes. Doesn't have to, because this time, someone asked, and meant it. Evelyn rests her fingers atop the folder. The smile lingers, but then she shakes her head gently. Thank you, Jackson, she says. Truly. He waits. But I don't want a title or an office, not yet. He tilts his head, intrigued. She looks around the cafe, eyes softening. This is my place, my people. I've got tea service this Saturday. They're already asking about the lemon cookies. A beat, then a breath. I've been invisible too long to sit behind a desk. He nods, respecting her choice. She chooses presence over promotion, familiar over formal. Because for Evelyn, honor isn't a plaque on the wall. It's finally being seen. Saturday afternoon, 8 regulars gather at the back, where the light is gentler and laughter lingers longer. Mismatched teacups, hand-folded napkins, steam curling from pots like small blessings. Orange tea cakes dusted with powdered sugar. The jukebox hums quietly. Moon River. Evelyn moves between tables, no longer a server, but a host. She pours with ease, asks about tomatoes, grandkids, favorite songs. Someone hums, someone laughs. No rush, just care. Across the room, Jackson watches, arms folded, smiles slow and soft. This isn't profit. This is presence. And the cafe has never felt so full. Clara doesn't clock in anymore. Her apron now folded neatly in a drawer, but every Tuesday she visits. No tray, just a warm scarf, a seat by the window. A white envelope arrived last week. Inside, a card, a letter. Sunrise Café, health assistance approved. Jackson's signature below. No fanfare, no spotlight, just dignity, sealed with grace. She reads it twice, then tucks it into a small wooden box beside her pill organizer. For the first time in years, she doesn't choose between medication and meals. When Evelyn asks how she's feeling, Clara simply says, lighter. At table 7, Evelyn pours tea for a quiet man who always leaves exact change. She smiles, wipes her hands. Then her eyes land on the POS screen beside the counter. She freezes, just for a second. Evelyn May, tip 3.75. Her name. Bold, centered, untouched. No asterisk. No reroute. No mistake. She doesn't speak, just lets her hand rest gently on the counter. It's just a few digits on a screen. But what matters isn't the number. It's the name, and the fact that it's finally hers. Jackson sits alone near the window, jacket folded beside him, a fresh coffee untouched. He opens a leather notebook. Pages frayed, corners softened. In neat handwriting, he writes, "Justice doesn't arrive with noise. It comes quietly. When one person decides not to look away." He underlines the last line once. Outside, the sun dips low, casting a golden warmth through the lace curtains. Inside, the cafe hums with new life. Spoons clink, jazz floats, and Evelyn's voice greets a new guest with the warmth of someone finally seen. If this story moved you, if you believe people like Evelyn deserve to be seen, don't forget to subscribe. Drop a like. Share this with someone who needs to remember what fairness truly looks like. Because it's not just about numbers. It's about names and the courage to say, I see you.